1996, 7, and 8 were the only years in history where the average selling price of chips went down 3 consecutive years. Never, ever once in another recession have they gone down more than 1 year and then bounced back the next year. So last 3 years have been character-building years.
Well, what's it been like? I mean, how do you deal with this personally?
The way I always work, you do the best job you can do. You convince yourself that you're managing competently, and you go home and let it slide. You just can't get hung up in it, otherwise, you know, it devastates.
You spent all these years on this nice wave rolling forward, company growing well. I mean, you had a few you know, hesitations, a little stutter steps in the growth of the firm, but on the whole, it was always this nice, fast trajectory. And now you're just sort of, the wave's breaking. I mean, you've been hanging on for 3 years.
Yeah, the last 3 years have been flat. It's a different paradigm for management. You're managing to try to return to profitability, in our case in 1997. You're managing for return on assets, so you're away from the helter-skelter, rah-rah growth into let's make this company efficient. And fact is...
Do you like doing this?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, some people do. Some people like the hard times because they're doing triage. They're always engaged. They're doing that. But other people hate it because you can't do all the pro-employee things you did before. You can't give away stuff. You're not constantly hiring and giving raises. You're taking away.
Well, in our case, we made a choice. We decided rather than whittling away from our employees, we would keep the ones we could keep, get smaller, and treat the ones that were left well. So we shut down one plant, and we kept 2,000 people, and we made, clearly nobody's life was great, but we gave them raises every year, we gave them stock options every year, and we kept the morale together during the trough.
What do you do personally? Do you still go out and run every day?
Oh, it's real simple. I do running, I do movies, and I make wine. Those are what I do, and cook. That's it. So I'm either doing chips or those other 4 things.
That get your head out of all the stuff going on out there?
Sure, but again, for me, it's not. If at the end of the day I felt like I've done a good job, be it to take a company that's hurting from a recession and make it a little bit better. Actually, I have kind of a perverse personality where I feel like I can contribute more in tough times because I've been around now at Cypress for 18 years, 17 years, and people know that I'm in there for the long haul, and I can add stability. During the rah-rah times, anybody can run a company. Anybody can, you know, hire more people, give them more money.
Everybody's a genius.
Right,
good
right.
times. Talk about how you became who you are. You grew up in Wisconsin?
Yep, Oshkosh.
In Oshkosh, bagosh. What'd your folks do?
My dad was a used car salesman, a car salesman, then a used car salesman. My mother was a 5th grade teacher.
That's a very interesting combination of people. Was your dad your classic car salesman? I mean, was he like a real good salesman, you know, lapel-grabbing kind of guy?
No, my parents met during World War II, and my mother was actually sent and became an instructor in electronics, a woman's instructor in radio electronic, a wire, the wax and wires. And my dad was a pilot. And
Where did he fly?
He flew in the Southwest Pacific. He flew a DC-3 for MacArthur's forces, flew in troops in and out and supplies. And they fell in love, and basically she was educated, became a teacher, and he wasn't, and selling cars was what you can do. But he's a real solid person who people trust, and he's built a good client list and made a good living at it.
So your mom was a driving force on education in your house?
Oh yeah, by far.
By far. You were going to go to college no matter what?
It was ordained. Anything less than a PhD would have been failure.
In high school, you played ball, didn't you?
Played football.
You're not big enough to play football.
I weighed that time about 195 pounds, and I was pretty fast. So in the Ivy League, which, you know, isn't pro like the other schools are, you could easily play football at 195 pounds.
So you have this reputation of being a tough guy. Were you a tough guy in high school?
Yeah.
Tough guy in college?
Yep.
A lot of fights?
No. Tough in the sense that outspoken, verbal, don't take any flack. So it was kind of like more like hard-ass than physically tough.
Were you an entrepreneur?
Always. My mother likes to tell a story about how she, for a reward one time, gave me a half a watermelon and then found me selling it out in front of the house. I was making money on it.
You're very well known as being a conservative libertarian.
Right.
And obviously the Stanford you walked into in the 1980s was a liberal bastion. Did you ever have any clashes there over your politics?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a libertarian, and there's some parts of what conservatives like that I like. For example, their like of small government and low taxes. There's some parts of what conservatives like regulating your sex life and what you snort or drink, which I don't like. And also with regard to liberals, I share some common ground with them. They're socially libertarian, be who you want to be, do what you want to do, and I believe in that. I just don't like it when they try to take over your money and say, well, I've got a better idea of what to do with your money in the form of high taxes than you do. So
Were you saying this at Stanford B School?
No. I'm accused of being political. I'm not. I would never run for office. I wouldn't want to be a senator, or I wouldn't want to be the president of the United States. I have a real job. I don't depend on confiscating money from people in order to support myself. I make money for myself and the people that work at Cypress and our shareholders. So I'm a creator of wealth, not a taker of wealth. And I'm political only in the sense that I believe in freedom, I believe in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley haven't got a clue what that means. And they don't understand that capitalism, free markets, free minds and free markets, is exactly what allowed them to become rich, along with their skills. And then they support things that undermine the basic values and the basic economic system that makes Silicon Valley what it is, and that's capitalism.
But now there's a lot of CEOs who agree with you, but would not go out and write op-ed pieces in the Wall Street Journal, like you do.
That's true.
And especially they wouldn't, because their boards would have their heads on poles out front of the headquarters, do things like take on Jesse Jackson, take on a nun. You obviously didn't go to Catholic school, because you would have known that you can't win that one. At some point you stop in the middle of all this and say, I'm in a battle right now in print against a nun. I'm going to lose this no matter what I do.
Okay, first of all, wrong. I won big time. Step zero is important. I mean, a nun in Pennsylvania writes me a letter that she's going to withhold 13,400 votes for me to be on the board of directors of my own company, which I invented, because according to her, even though there are no pictures in her annual report, she's decided our board is too white male. Okay, well, a prudent thing might be to ignore her. But the fact is, if you have my job, you have dozens of meddlers who are trying to make you do things that aren't consistent with making your company successful. You've got the nuns who want your board of directors to have a certain demography. You've got the California Retirement Board who's decided you ought to run your company another way. You've got various government agencies, and at the end of the day, one of the things that makes Silicon Valley successful is companies think just about that. I want the company to succeed. I'm not going to break any laws, but I'm going to make a new workstation, some new software. I'm going to do Java.
So is your first priority Cypress?
Of course.
But what is Cypress, though? Is the first priority your employees? Is that the core?
No, Cypress is a company and it's owned by shareholders. So my first priority is to look after my shareholders' interests.
Okay.
Period.
So your reply to the nun, because I remember reading the exchange going back and forth, it was pretty antagonistic, that your task was to produce the most value
for the shareholders.
For the shareholders.
Right.
And that was your sole criteria.
Right.
You were not into social engineering.
Right. And the reason I picked her, even though in the grand scheme, economic scheme, she didn't matter that much, was she's a classic example of someone who nominally stands for good, but in my opinion stands for evil, doing bad, messing up the economy that supports a lot of people for what she perceives to be good. And therefore, she was an ideal person to make that statement about. And then that statement it's a big deal in companies. Where can I run this company to be successful? And I didn't lose by a lot. I received 1,000 letters based on my exchange with her, 10 times more letters than I ever received in any other thing I've ever written. And they were 91% favorable and 9% unfavorable. It was overwhelming. It's the most overwhelmingly favorable thing I've ever written, because everybody else saw her as an authoritarian who had a certain set of beliefs, which were beliefs that she couldn't justify. But being a nun, she lives in a world of having beliefs she doesn't need to justify. She just believes because it is. And she was trying to jam those beliefs down my throat and my shareholders' throat. And I said, to heck with you. We're going to run this company ethically and profitably for our shareholders, not for what you declare is right.
What did your board say to all this? Do they ever say, CJ, just send her a note, private note, don't put it in the newspaper, because it's just going to stir things up? Most boards would say that. I had a tough... If your company was 10 times the size, the board wouldn't let you do this.
Well, they could take a hike then. It's real simple. If they want me running the company, then they get the package.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I never consulted with the board. I never asked them what I could publish. I'm an American. I have the right of free speech. If they like me, the package plus what I say, great. If not, they can find another guy to run the company.
Okay, what about Jesse Jackson?
There I was going to play conventional wisdom. I'm saying, okay, he's a great orator. He's going to come in and say a bunch of stuff that is antagonistic, but the return on investment for your shareholders of making that point is small, because he really doesn't matter with regard to your business. And you get a black eye for dealing with the guy. So I'll let this one pass, and I did. He's for 4 days, absolutely refused to talk, got all kinds of phone calls, because I'm the guy that's willing to speak his mind, right? Just didn't want to comment on it. Then I came into work one day, and I heard him talking on the radio, and I heard him talking, undermining our values, undermining freedom, you will do the following because I'm Jesse and I say, undermining economic freedom. You will hire the following people according to quotas because I'm Jesse and I say, and then impugning us. Cypress has 35% minority employment. I don't need a lesson from him about hiring people of all races, colors, and creeds. It's ridiculous. And he implied that there was some sort of structural prejudice in me, not me personally, but in me/CEO and in Silicon Valley. And got to work and I said, you know, I'm not going to let him get away with that. Everybody's afraid, like I was, to deal with the guy.
But you knew the press would be calling you, debate you, because they figure you'd be the one person to say something.
But they already laid off, because I'd already kind of, for 4 days. And then I got in and I said, call up TV guys if they want to talk to me, I'll talk. They showed up. And I gave a sort of an intellectual pitch to the first one, and I thought, yep, when that one gets chopped up for 10 o'clock news, there'll be nothing left. I did the same for the second one, and I thought for the third one, I need to engage here. I need to think of something that's more provocative. So I got up and stuck the microphone in my face, and they said, well, what do you think about Jesse Jackson? And I said, on TV, Channel 2, he reminds me of a seagull. He flies into town and craps all over everything and flies out. And the guy was sitting there looking at me like, did this guy really say this on tape? And there was a big debate. It turns out his boss said you can't show it, and his boss's boss said he said it. It's not profane, it's his opinion. He's willing to take responsibility for it, put it on the air. That triggered then the San Jose Mercury to ask for basically dueling editorials. And
which got global coverage.
It did, and Jesse wrote his thing, and I'm not into race stuff. In the same way I'm not into politics, and I really don't care that much, and I don't give much money to politics because I see politicians as those who take money and those who slow down society from what it could be if it were freer. I'm not into race merchants, which is what Jackson makes his living by stirring up racial stuff and working his network to make money on that angle. And I'm not interested in it because we hire everybody that's talented regardless of what color they are, and anybody who walks through Cypress would understand that. But you know, the fact that he was going to come back and he was going to start buying shares and making some mandates to companies, I saw him as another nun, a person coming in with sort of the aura of a minister and therefore automatically a good person. I started reading about the guy, and the guy's a con man, and he has a terrible track record. And if you just read what the man says on his website, it's terrible. And if we followed what that man said, Silicon Valley wouldn't exist, literally.
Let's talk long term. When you're in a position that you're in, you're now an icon of a point of view, and you actually are a kind of a paradigm of a Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
It's true.
To the world out there. Do you want that role? Do you want that job?
Absolutely.
You do?
Absolutely.
It isn't a burden to you? It's like they don't know who I really am?
No. It is who I really am.
It is? I mean...
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. The thing that every time you do something, you know, there's big accomplishments in your life, right? My undergraduate education was one of my big accomplishments that I'm proud of to this day. And Cypress is too, but one of the things I'm most proud of is that I have taken the trouble to study and understand what it is that makes us special and different. It's not Java code or biotechnology. Those are the things certain companies or industries happen to work on here in Silicon Valley. What makes us special and different here in Silicon Valley is that we're truly capitalists. We invest. There is no safety net. You can go out of business. You crack into the wall. There's companies, you can count them on both fingers every day that go out of business. And that's life. And the fact is, by allowing people to take their chance to be a millionaire and fail and take their chance again and maybe succeed, we've created this incredibly rich society that produces things for everybody in the world, not just to make ourselves rich. And I understand that, and I understand depth and breadth. I understand why Jesse Jackson or nuns or liberal CEOs who think they're doing good and they really aren't, who undermine that, aren't good. And I'm willing to say it.
So you're on the ramparts defending
absolutely. Well,
this way of life.
Look at Semitech. You know, there's Gordon Moore in front of a congressional committee. The Gordon Moore, right? The Sir Gordon Moore. Right. And at that time, I run a little pipsqueak company, and I get up right after him and say, no, it's wrong. Don't give us money. Corporate welfare is bad. And it was, you know, I got put on the cover of Business Week called the bad boy of Silicon Valley for that. In retrospect, I'm really happy I have that position. And a lot of people come up to me and say...
You like that title. It's not a burden to you. It's not
the bad boy, but the fact that I called it right when I was willing to be alone and I was willing to suffer some abuse for it because I saw something the other guys who were blinded because they weren't getting... beating the Japanese and getting enough welfare from Washington, we're unhappy about.
Any guy who spends 20 years at the same company in high tech is a pretty dedicated human being. Mm-hmm. You're a company builder. Mm-hmm. Look around you now. If anything that's happened in the last year, it's that semiconductors, PCs, everything has sort of faded now into the background as this new generation of e-commerce, internet-based companies have come to the fore, and they're getting all the attention, they're getting all the investment money, the overnight millionaires, the IPO after 9 months, that sort of thing. What do you think about all this?
Well, I dislike greatly the resenters of wealth and the haters of freedom who criticize the e-com boys. I don't particularly admire a guy who says I'm worth $80 million and I don't wear socks to work. But on the other hand, the people gave him the money, so he or she must have created some value.
Is this real wealth, though?
Sure, it's real wealth, and what's happening is the American financial system is directing wealth toward where they think the world's going to move, and therefore we're moving at light speed relative to the Japanese, who probably still have a committee working on the problem, and the Europeans who are, trying to work it out politically. So let the e-millionaires be e-millionaires.
Now here's my concern. They're not building real companies. That these are companies built on sand. They truly are virtual, but they're evanescent, that they'll disappear like mayflies the moment the market consolidates itself. You built a brick and mortar company. There's nothing more brick and mortar. You're not even an electronics company, really. You're a chemical manufacturing company, and that's what chips are. What do you think of these companies that seem to exist almost in the minds of their creators out there?
Well, what you say is right. I wouldn't quite say we're a chemistry company. We're a chemistry, physics, and electronics company. We have brick and mortar, and we hire real people and pay them money and create jobs. And I do value making things that are real and having employees and being able to support a bigger team of people. On the other hand, if these people change the world and make us all richer and better off, and everybody's standard of living rises because of them, let them have their money. I don't resent people making money ever, if it's freely given to them and it's not extorted, by some sort of government action, for example.
Well, let me tell you what I'm hearing from your peers out there, that something has happened in the mindset of the Valley. It isn't about as much about building things. It isn't about creating something that creates long-term value. It's about individuals. I'm going to get rich right now. And it's not just .com, but it's across the board in high tech. There seems to have been this shift. The David Packard idea of building a company is gone. You don't build a 50-year company now. You try to get rich.
There are certainly strategies to get in, build it up, and get bought by Cisco. But then the DNA that you created gets assimilated into a larger body, and certainly Cisco has to be the next Intel, the force to be reckoned with. And if it's a conglomeration of things from the free market, it's still worth it.
But it's about character, isn't it? I mean, if anybody believes in character, it's you.
That's true.
As an entrepreneur, that to be the CEO of a successful company, it's not enough merely to hit the numbers. It's not enough merely to make sure that quality is at 6 nines or whatever it's at. It's got to be. It's about the character of the person who runs the company and the character of the company itself.
That's true.
Is the character of high tech deteriorating?
I don't think so. I don't think people, first of all, I disagree that the whole character of the Valley's change and the quick buck is what we're after. I've seen a lot of editorials like that, and I think that has to do partly with people that resent quick wealth happening because people have a large contribution to make and get paid for it. And as far as not changing our life, I didn't go to the drugstore last Saturday because I ordered my stuff from drugstore.com and it showed up in the mail, and I saved myself a half an hour out of my life for 45 minutes. What's that worth? And so it's valuable. They're changing the world. So,
would you give them any advice? Would you tell them to go out and fight the good fights like you do?
Nope. If the number one advice is they should work in the best interest of their shareholders for the long term. In other words, don't work to make EPS greater this quarter if it means shafting your employees or screwing your customers or producing crappy quality. If your goal is to be around many years from now, then making money is equivalent to doing right by everybody around you, because you'll be all alone quickly if you don't. And as long as they work toward that end, creating wealth for themselves and their shareholders and their customers in the communities in which they live, I can't knock them. Now, on the other hand, could I bring in one of them and put him into a 3-year recession in the silicon company, and would he be around at the end? Probably not. And
It's a character test.
Absolutely. And do I take pride in that fact? Sure I do. But just because they don't want to put on pads and smack heads with me doesn't mean that they don't add value and aren't worth the money they're making.